Does a high protein intake cause kidney damage? That's a big question a lot of people ask, especially if they're in fitness or bodybuilding, where we know we need to eat a lot of protein to put on muscle, since protein or amino acids are basically the building source, building blocks of muscle. So here's a question: if I eat too much protein, will I damage my kidney? So the short answer is, if you have a healthy kidney, then it should be keeping up with the increased amount of protein. Okay, so when we metabolize protein, we are basically producing waste products that need to be filtrated by the kidney. And if the kidney is healthy and functions well, then there is no worries to introduce a little more protein. However, if there is existing kidney damage or low glomerular filtration rate in the kidney, is a pre-existing condition, then having a high amount of protein can actually damage the liver, the kidney. So I will show you how this works. So we have blood coming in into the glomerulus. So this is basically a bowl where the blood is filtrated, and then after the first filtration, it will go into nephron and go into the ureter to be secreted as urine. So all these big particles, like proteins and blood cells, are usually blocked from entering the nephron. So they will be sent back straight to the blood. Okay? So if there is increased protein intake, then the waste products from the protein degradation will need to be filtrated by this glomerulus, by the kidney, and this puts on excess stress on the kidney if the kidney function is impaired. However, if we have a healthy kidney, then this filtration rate might go up for a certain time when the protein intake is elevated, but it doesn't mean that there's damage done to the kidney. Okay, so how do we measure our kidney function? We measure that usually in an estimate glomerular filtration rate. So the glomerulus is this part of the kidney that filtrates the blood. Okay, so estimated glomerulus filtration rate. So how well do we filtrate the blood before we reuptake stuff into our bloodstream, or we secrete it to the outside in form of urine? eGFR, the higher the better, the more we filtrate. So usually above 90 is very good, and below that, it could mean that there's some impairment of the kidney function. However, as you can see, it says here estimated. Okay, so this estimated is crucial here, since usually it is based on creatinine levels. So creatinine is basically a molecule that is formed by the breakdown of creatine or phosphocreatine. And as we know, if we train a lot or we have a lot of muscle mass, we use a lot of creatine and phosphocreatine, hence creatinine levels will go up. And the estimation of glomerular filtration rate is based on creatinine. That means that if you have a lot of muscle, if you work out a lot, then you most likely will have a low estimated glomerular filtration rate. And this does not mean that your kidney is 100% damaged. Okay, it just means that the estimate was based on creatinine, and this was biasing the eGFR number. So if you have a lot of muscle, if you work out a lot, there's another molecule besides creatinine that is called cystatin C. That's basically a protein that is made in our cells, and it is basically sent into our bloodstream, and then in the kidney it is reabsorbed by the cells of the kidney and not sent back in the bloodstream. So this cystatin C estimate, based on the cystatin C estimated glomerular filtration rate, is maybe more accurate for individuals with a lot of muscle mass or who work out a lot. And sometimes we always also take the the both. So the estimated glomerular filtration rate based on creatinine and on cystatin C. And this gives usually a better image than just the creatinine, since it can be very biased depending on your muscle mass and your level of training. Then next step, if you're worried about kidney health and if protein damage kidneys, yes or no, then you can also look at the albumin in your blood. Okay, albumin is a pretty big protein that should be filtrated out and should not enter the nephron. So it should come back. If this albumin makes it into the urine, then it means that there is some impaired kidney function. And usually this is compared to the creatinine ratio, so albumin to creatinine ratio, and this gives you also a good image if you have some impaired kidney function. And again, the albumin creatinine ratio is measured in the urine, not the blood. eGFR in the blood and albumin to creatinine ratio measured in the urine. So to recap, increased protein intake for bodybuilding or fitness or health purposes usually will not damage your liver, your kidneys, if you do it not in excess levels. If you have just a healthy, high protein intake and you're healthy, then your kidney should be able to cope with the filtration of the elevated amount of waste product. But if you have an impaired kidney function to start with, then increasing protein intake can even worsen the situation. And if you want to measure your kidney health, again, eGFR based on creatinine or cystatin C and albumin to creatinine ratio in the urine. All right. So I hope this video was helpful, and please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you for watching.